On today's episode of the Cannon Podcast, join us as we break down what makes Yakubu special, discuss the latest news about Thomas Partey, analyse Arsenal's newest wonder kid, and discuss who should be starting against West Ham.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast, and all three of us are here today to break down a very, very nice win against Sheffield United, talk about Yakubu and Emile Smith-Rowe, alongside so many more topics as always. George, Alex, how you guys doing?
Mate, 10k subs on YouTube. Let's go.
Beautiful scenes. It's things you love to see, baby.
Salty Spuds tears.
Salty Spuds tears. I don't think that's what you ran out, to be fair. But yeah,
No,
zero. We need one more zero after that. So soon come. But appreciate the support as always. You guys are a tremendous community. But let's start off with a tremendous performance. Arsenal smashing Sheffield United. I said Nottingham Forest. Sheffield United 5-0. George, talk to me about your boy Emile Smith-Rowe playing as left number 8.
Look, I think he had a good game. I don't know if I would say it was incredible in terms of in-possession value. I think, both of our eights in that performance didn't maybe do the best between the line performance. They didn't provide maybe some shocking passing plays. But one thing that I loved about that performance from Emile Smith-Rowe is the movement. I'm sure we'll get into Eddie Nketiah and what made that performance pretty good, barring the hat trick. But in terms of Emile Smith-Rowe's role in making sure that Eddie shined, it was really quite key. So every time that Emile would make a run forward, that's when Eddie would drop. And it meant that kind of that disorganization of that block that Sheffield were doing created openings for us. And that is really the key, that even not just his in-possession quality in terms of having the bingo central running power that he offers. If there's a game that he isn't offering that dynamic runs is something that I feel that we've been missing from our eights. I feel that they've been static in a sense of really staying high up in those specific half spaces and then not moving. And I just feel as though that we saw a little bit more willingness, a very unselfish running from Emile Smith-Rowe pretty much all game. But in terms of his in-possession stuff, I have to be fair. I think all in all, it was probably a 6 out of 10 performance. But the movement, I think, opened up a lot more avenues for us to attack. And I don't think he was alone in that. I do think that we see a lot more movement from Eddie, really helping, who had a brilliant game himself. And then I think even Bukayo Saka switching over, he got really annoyed with Kai Havertz and he went to the left-hand side, and these two boys will look for each other to combine. If you don't put them on the same side, they will gravitate towards each other. So just start there. They're brothers. Let them have fun, because I think. Well, exactly. And, I think also there was about 25 minutes in that Sheffield kind of first half performance that I felt like we were kind of void of ideas. We were just patiently trying to break down this block. And it wasn't until that switch from Saka going really to the left-hand side that we started to see a little bit more movement. So all in all, probably a 6 out of 10 from Emile Smith-Rowe. I expect more, a lot more. But he shows you what he can offer. He definitely offers something different that I don't think some of our eights do. And really, when you have a question mark between, Martin Odegaard as well as, Kai Havertz in the 8 position, we start to ask ourselves, what are some of the other things that these eights that we do have can do to impact the game? So, yeah, I think Emile Smith-Rowe had a good game.
Yeah, I think the question becomes, Alex, then, how can ESR now break into the first team? And if he is going to break into the first team, where is his best position? Now, we saw it in the left number 8. Didn't quite work up to the highest standard. He has played on the left before as more of a left forward in a midfield 3. Now let's talk about him on the right-hand side. Do you think maybe that's the area, as George says, next to Bukayo Saka, where we can see the best of Emile Smith-Rowe's strengths?
Yeah, I think we've spoken about before, possibly on that side in terms of the dynamic overlaps. I think we've lost something slightly. I think White is still overlapping. I think we've lost something slightly with Odegaard, maybe having different responsibilities deeper and in other areas in terms of this season. So maybe we've lost that sort of triumvirate on that side. So maybe Smith-Rowe can sort of supplement that in certain games. I think what Smith-Rowe can do, and what I really loved against Sheffield, was the return. I think sometimes people watch games against a game like Sheffield and just go, well, what can you learn from that? And I actually sometimes think, maybe you can say, when you're playing a team of that quality, and let's be clear, they were ass. They were not good. Actually, in some ways, you can almost see the ideas unimpeded, which I really like. You can almost see a coach's ideas and what they're really trying to do, because it's less impeded by the opposition. And what I saw and what I loved was a return to a number of switches, breaking the line centrally. We were trying shots from outside the box. We were shooting from inside, outside the box. We were getting into the half space as well. There was lots of movement and a bit more fluidity like we had last season in terms of the changing positions that George has alluded to. So lots of stuff returned, which is really nice. And I think with Smith Rowe, weirdly, I want to mention Timber in this because I think I don't want to over-index. I think I said this on X. I don't want to over-index Arteta's intelligence, but I do wonder whether the Timber signing was slightly in anticipation of this idea that we're going to be sat against a lot of low blocks this season, and you can go through, round or over. And one of the ways you can go through is obviously through passing, but we're struggling with that. But you can try and carry through blocks. And I think Timber, especially on the underlap, would have been a massive help with that. And I think Smith Rowe is 100% an option with that. I think he's one of the best carriers in the. I think Jamie Carragher even said a couple of years ago he's one of the best ball carriers in the league. Now you need the space to do that, but in certain games when you're trying to break down a block, if rather than having pass first players or players who are more likely to do that, like a Martin Odegaard, why not try a Smith Rowe? I think also now, we're hearing rumours that he's sort of got his burst back. And I think from a cardiovascular perspective, I do think he looks a bit more fit than he was. But yeah, there's so much. Look, do I think Smith Rowe has a long-term future at Arsenal? Honestly, no. But I think, in the short term as another option, then absolutely.
Mm. There was another standout performer, another starter for the first time or second time this season in the Premier League, Yakubu Kiwior, George. A very nice performance at the back, holding Sheffield United or helping Arsenal hold Sheffield United to a 0.02 XG. Of course, they're not the best going forwards, but a strong performance on the ball. Talk to me about what makes Kiwior special.
I mean, you can kind of look at David Raya's performance, actually, and it tells you really the whole story. And, the amount of times that I saw David Raya join to become a left center back in build-up was really rare in this game. And that is the Yakubu Kiwior effect. And just fundamentally, he's probably got one of the more fluid receiving, in kind of our entire
his hips.
Defensive. Well,
just say hips.
Well,
Shakira.
I mean, you got to look at those hips. They don't lie, So it's just I feel as though he gives us a level of technical assuredness in that position that maybe Gabriel doesn't. That's not to say that I would prefer Kiwior to start generally. I mean, Gabriel has such a dominance in his dual expectancy, but I think that technical ability is something that means that he deserves a little bit more minutes. He's definitely one of my most underrated players in the squad, and I just wanted to point everybody's kind of attention to how he messages his passes. So look in terms of how punchy and what his passes say. Sending a message. Arsene Wenger kind of talked about this really famously in terms of technical empathy and what does that mean. So it's not just that you have to be somebody that's really got great passing ranges or got brilliant kind of ability on the ball from manipulation or whatnot. But if you're going to play a pass, where are you playing it to? Are you playing it to their strong foot? Are you playing it into space? Are you playing it to slow so that they can recycle or let them know they've got time on the ball? Are you playing it on their back foot? Like, all of these questions are things we as fans probably take for granted. And the reason I'm bringing it up is I think Kiwior places this at the utmost importance. And when you saw his performance on the weekend, I think that he was unremarkable defensively, which just is brilliant because, you don't want to see a drop in your defensive kind of dominance. But his technical ability really struck me. He was kind of the only player in that back line to really push the tempo. And I think that's been a problem of Arsenal of late, by the way, just tempo of our play. And I think Saliba is brilliant. We know his technical ability, but in that game, he had the most touches and it was kind of slow. It was just him baiting opposition. And of course, that's a role that you need in the defense. But Kiwior's ability to really release the ball quick, I don't think he held onto the ball for longer than 3 or 4 seconds, which really kind of helps push the attacking tempo higher up the pitch and get us into 1v1s a little bit better. So I love Yakubu Kiwior. I think we've barely seen the tip of the iceberg with him in terms of potential and in terms of his responsibility. And one thing I'm really, really excited about of hopefully seeing a bit more is those long passing stuff that we've seen kind of in internationals, whether that's from a whipped cross that we saw, with Poland, or whether that's through significant switches from the left center back out to the right wing. I don't think that our team does enough of these long switches quickly, because if you're going to be facing a low block, right, and you're going to be facing teams that are willing to sit in and kind of protect central spaces, you need to make sure that you're moving the ball at a quick enough pace, but also that you're moving opposition quickly. So if you focus kind of, play onto one side, like the left-hand side, let's say, for example, the space is going to be outright. How quick you can move from left to right is very, very key in terms of making sure that you're getting your players in kind of 1v1 opportunities more frequently. And he's got that power. He's got that raking long switch on him. That's brilliant. And I just think with more authority and the more comfortability he finds himself in the team, he'll start making those passes. But that's a weapon. That's a weapon that I don't think we use well enough, certainly not from Gabriel. And even from, I would say, Zinchenko's side, like that entire side lacks the competency to really switch left to right. At least on the right, I see Ben White, who's got that ability. Saliba definitely has it, although we don't see it as often as we should. But the right has that. The left, not so much. It's very much a carry first dominant side, or it's a pass first between the lines. I don't see that switch on us, and it makes us predictable. So I really can't wait to see more minutes from QBR because I loved it. I loved the performance. I think it deserved more, and it wasn't just because Sheffield are a poor performance. I think he's been bubbling for a while.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you spoke about in the past of his potential as a left back. So the question then becomes, having seen how he performs as a centre back in this game and how he's played as a left back in some games as well this season, where do you think in Arteta's system is his long-term position?
Oh, Bhavs. It's about zones in positions. But I joke about that, but I think we have to start thinking about players less in positional senses and more about what zones they occupy and what they do. And I think with Kivior, the way he can support an attack on the overlap from centre-back is very, I don't know whether unique, because we've seen it in the Premier League from players like Ake and Akanji and stuff, but it's very useful for Arsenal. It's different from Gabriel. What I'd say is Gabriel is one of the best players in terms of in the wide channels, going backwards, defending that space in behind Zinchenko. We're so lucky to have him. Without Gabriel, that Zinchenko inversion doesn't work. Like it doesn't, because Gabriel's so good at that, and he's one of the best in the world, in my opinion, in those positions. But stepping forward and supporting attack, Gabriel's less comfortable, and that's fine. You don't want to have loads of exactly the same profiles in a team. You need different options and different ways of playing. I think what Kivior can do is he can occupy and sort of almost pen teams in from centre back, because he can sort of flip around the side, head into more sort of the wide areas from centre back. I don't know whether I love him as a left back sort of for 35, 40 games a season yet, just because of his lack of overlapping. But do I believe he could do a lot of what maybe we're seeing Tomiyasu doing in the Sevilla game and the long game? Absolutely. I think Kivior could do that. And possibly even more interestingly, could he come even more central as more of a 6 option? I think he absolutely could. So it's just about what you believe the player can do, where you think he's more comfortable. And actually, if you watch him against Sheffield, a lot of the time he'd step up early and then be the one in the second line, and Rice and Zinchenko would sit behind him, pass the ball into him, and he'd turn. There was a few times against Sheffield that happened. So he's clearly comfortable doing that. Gabriel isn't. But Gabriel, obviously, as George mentioned, has unbelievable dual-winning capacity. So to answer the question, there isn't really an answer. It's just a skill set. And it's like, okay, in this game, we're trying to pen a team in a bit more. We believe that they're really dangerous on the counter-attack. How do we support our players in the front lines if they lose the ball? How do we support them? And that's by having a centre-back in this situation who we think actually their right wing is not that great. So we can, so we're not too worried about, him being done in the wide areas. We don't need the best in the world there today. We can have Kivior who can support it in a different way, maybe become more central, create overloads. It's just different. I mean, if I had to pick, I would say probably in the end he's going to be a left centre back on paper, but I really don't see why he can't play significant minutes at left back. And actually, I think before this season, I was looking at him as my first pick. I think he even made a video about it on my channel, sort of over the summer. But actually, maybe there's a player we can come on to. Tomiyasu's improvement as a left back has massively taken me by surprise. I did not see it coming, especially with his forward potential, those runs he's making. George and I spoke about this yesterday. Like his ability to receive and cushion a ball, his unique physical profile, so much makes him so good in that area. So look, we're whichever way you slice it, whatever you believe, we're really blessed in that position at the minute. Really blessed overall in the defence, and this is without Timber as well, which is exciting.
We are blessed in many positions, likewise in central midfield. But at number 6, there's a bit of news on Thomas Partey. Out and unavailable again with a muscular injury for a few weeks, Mikel Arteta says. I think Alex pointed out on his Twitter, on the X, as you say. 50 games he's missed now via transfer market. So What do we do now with Thomas Partey?
He's only played like 100.
Yeah,
he's
100
played 100
games
and
played,
missed 50.
15 missed. That's 50% of the games he's missed. And now you think about it now, what do we do going into the future? Now, I don't think Arsenal are going to move him on in January. But is it time to just move past Thomas Partey, George? And if so, the question then becomes, who do Arsenal sign to replace him?
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To hear the full episode, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod.